Let's settle for the details now because renowned economist Kwame Pianim has joined calls for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to leave office. According to him, there is no reason for him to stay at post considering the economic turmoil being witnessed under his supervision. He believes there are better qualified individuals who can manage the public purse and take it out of the current crunch. Ghana is currently at the doors of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for a bailout amid intensifying hardship, a rising cost of living and a depreciating CD.
I guess I have to leave it off here, but there's a last question I need to ask you. The question is being asked, if the finance minister leaves right now, who will replace him?
For goodness sake, why should you ask this question? We have 22 million Ghanaians. If those of us all in Ghana cannot do it, I can go onto the street, close my eyes, and pick 10 people who do the job better than Ken Ofori-Atta is doing. What are we talking about? In my village, they will tell you, okay, homeless is wrong, no order. When the uncle hadn't discovered that nice girl inside the street was sleeping, the best minister for finance we've ever had was J.H. Mensah. He was 40 years old when he was managing the ministry. And he's not a young man. He's 64. He's done enough. And I'm appealing to him. In the name of the good Lord he professes to believe in and to worship, please go before you destroy this country.
Former President John Dramani Mahama has blamed the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta for the country's economic woes. According to him, the president's seeming inability to remove Mr. Ofori-Atta from office is making the situation worse. Speaking at a lecture on the economy on Thursday, he stressed that the incompetence of the sector minister and the entire Akufo-Addo regime account for the depreciation of the CD and other economic challenges plaguing the country.
The biggest blame for the current tragic situation in which we find ourselves lies with the very people charged with managing the country and not with the pandemic, not with any war in any country, as has been unprofessionally posited. And Ghana has been treated as an experimental playground or a family heirloom. And I regret to say this was all avoidable. Things could have been different, and I've remained very convinced that they could have been different. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to restate what I have said over the years. We are ever ready and willing to share pragmatic steps that will help put our nation back on track. Ideally, in situations like this, backroom channels of communications should exist between the ruling party and the opposition to allow for exchange of views on important matters of national interest to the benefit of Ghanaians. Unfortunately, that has not been the case under this government, for which reason we in NDC are compelled on almost all occasions to engage the people of Ghana directly on some of the things we believe ought to be done to mitigate the untold suffering of our people and get our economy back on track. Even though government has requested for an IMF program, the lateness of the decision and the extent of economic decay means that an early approval of a fund program could prove elusive. It may take a couple of more months before an agreement is reached on a program between Ghana and the fund. In the meantime, there's the need to stem the rapid decline in the economy and reduce the unbearable hardships Ghanaians are going through.
Former President John Mahama also says he hopes President Akufo-Addo's words in his upcoming address to the nation would bring some sort of relief to Ghanaians amidst the current economic hardship. He said the current economic situation does not warrant the president to be engaging in the vain, glorious pursuit of vindication. He reiterated that the country's challenges are domestically driven. The economic woes have been felt in the pockets of Ghanaians, compelling people to urge the president to fix the economy.
Amidst boastful claims that they were the best managers of the economy. Immediately after the elections, it became clear that we had been thrown into a bottomless pit of debt round our necks, staggering budget deficits, and a rapidly deteriorating fiscal position. The looming disaster at the time required an urgent response. And even as the crisis deepened, earlier this year, we in NDC besieged government with many prescriptions, which I articulated in the Ghana at the Crossroads speech in May this year. And I urged government to seek multilateral assistance urgently. Among others, I also called on President Akufo-Addo to expeditiously convene a national dialogue on the economy, at which the best and brightest minds of our nation would be brought together to huddle and formulate a robust response to the challenges confronting us. I guess that is too late now. I re-echoed demands by Ghanaians that the finance minister and the chair of the economic management team, who have been primarily responsible for this economic catastrophe, should be relieved of their positions to breed confidence among stakeholders and offer the economy a new lease of life. I asked the president to deploy some of the arsenals from the presidential toolkit and reshuffle his government to inject innovation and freshness of thinking into the running of the country. I also asked that the president address the nation to inform the public about the specific steps that he was intending to take to turn the condition around. This address was meant to calm the anxiety of the investor community and rally Ghanaians behind any such effort that he was willing to take. Regrettably, the president dug in and failed to do any of these suggestions.
Well, to survive these hard economic times, former President John Dramani Mahama has this advice for you.
As much as possible, we need to acquire and sustain a taste and preference for locally manufactured products. If we must buy consumables or food products, let us consciously look for that rice or chicken that was produced locally, so that it doesn't become necessary for us to have to spend millions of dollars to import those same items. Thank you. Let us consciously eat more of our local foods, like yam, local grains like maize, rice, our local rice, cassava, beans, gobe. Those of you of the gobe eaters, the Gobe Eaters Association, you are doing very well for Ghana.
Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Stephen Amo, who is a member of the Finance Committee, and we spoke about former President's lecturer, and this is what he had to say. External factors, but rather by mismanagement on part of government.
My regards to our listeners or viewers this very morning. I think as a country, one of the challenges we are having is the fact that people place premium on their individual and group interests more than the social interests of the people. Mm-hmm. And this has destroyed our country over the years, not only under one regime. How can a former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, respectfully, please, mm-hmm. I mean, I respect him so much, mm-hmm. say that today's economic challenges basically have got nothing to do with the global crisis. And the very economy that we are in depends on these developed economies. That as I'm talking to you right now, I'm not comparing Ghana to any country. That's the mistake people make. Because different countries have different dynamics. So you can only compare a company to industry performance, a country to global performance.
Yeah.
But I will make this statement because we depend on them. So the analysis is that if I depend on UK's economy mm-hmm. and US economy and post-COVID, inflation rate is about 400%. What will happen to mine? Let's be very honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
What will happen to mine?
Yeah.
Have we had a situation as a country that we had about 22 months impaired productivity? Segment of this time, we're even asked to stay home, not to go anywhere. Beyond that, 10 people going to work, only 5 will stay, 5 will work within a month.
Yeah.
We've gone through all this, revenue shortfalls. Things are hard everywhere. So he should have situated this in this context before moving on to list 1 or 2 things that, oh, government also did this wrong, government did that wrong, this is the way forward. I'm trying hard not to do politics. But my sister, if we want to do politics, even 2016 that we are not going through this global ordeal, mm-hmm. GDP today is higher than what they handed over to us. Reserve today is about 6.6, even though it has been reduced. It's still bigger than 5.8 billion under his regime. Even interest rate, which is 33, is still lower than their regime, which was 37. So let's deal away with this NPP recycling issues. When they were there, we will do the same thing. When they are there, we should stop for one as a country. If former President Mahama really mean well for this country, he will just acknowledge the fact that, over the years, the use of fuel, the use of exchange rates, we've been recycling the blame stuff. Me, I'm coming back. I think I'm not interested in that. This is what we did wrong. NPP is doing the same thing. I think I want to move further. Then I can trust him. What do you think? I'm surprised. Oh, the solutions he actually tried to bring out. Even Sister you sitting there, even me here, all of us have been talking about size of government, corruption, this, that. That's all of us who've been talking.
Meanwhile, the minority is predicting an even harsher economic climate that will span at least the next 4 years. Minority spokesperson on finance, Kasila Atuforsen, said government will need at least 200 billion cedis to fix the situation. He also warned government to resist the urge to restructure only its local debts.
Need to do 8% of primary surplus every year for 4 years. So, colleagues, Ghana should brace for serious austerity in the coming years for the next 4 years or more. The mess they have created is such that they will leave office and their shadow will follow any government that comes after them. Commercial lenders and others will have to accept a reduction in interest and principal payment or risk default or non-payment. So the question is, you accept the haircut no matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter whether you get ugly, because obviously if you don't accept it, then there will be non-payment. So I would prefer to be ugly than not to get my money at all, because I will starve to die. You make your debt sustainable by doing all what it takes to get debt relief of 200 billion Ghana cedis and to bring it to 55% of GDP. The board will not sit and you will not get a dime from the IMF. And I repeat, you will not get a dime from the IMF. Within 20 years, Ghana is moving from heavily indebted poor country, HIPIC, to sovereign insolvency stress. So the problem now is no longer HIPIC. We are in SIS, sovereign insolvency stress. We in the minority recommend a set of policy options for government, and we demand urgent consideration. This country belongs to all of us.
Well, early this morning, the deputy organizer for the National Democratic Congress, Hamilton Nixon Baini, marched a group of concerned people to the office of the vice president to register their displeasure about Ghana's economic woes. Chief Baini says since the vice president has been touted as the economic messiah, a petition to him is a step in the right direction. He says high cost of living, sudden rise in prices of goods and services, increase in transportation fares, and high inflation, among other things, over the past months have caused serious economic crisis in the country. Joining me via Zoom is the man himself, Chief Baini, and he's going to tell us what exactly is contained in this petition. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for your time. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon.
No, so could you
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. So could you tell me what exactly is contained in your petition?
Thank you. Good afternoon once again to yourself and your cherished listeners. The petition is actually to remind the Vice President of the lecture, in fact, he held before he became the Vice President. The fact that he told us that he has arrested the dollar. The fact that he told us that he is an economic messiah. And so he can help us do better if he should come into government. You remember he also made a reportage that he has arrested the dollar. And so we reminded him of all that times are hard. The dollar right now, the exchange rate is too much. People are suffering. Business people are complaining. Traders are complaining. Police officers are even complaining. And so it is about time he comes to show us something that will give us hope. He should try and bring out something that will let the people of this country actually continuously have some hope in his government. He's been too quiet. And also we give solutions as to how we can look at the rail transport that they've been talking about. We look at the high import duties. It's about time we do something about that. So we suggested some things to him also, that if in case all he said he would do, he has forgotten, or there is no more plans, he can actually fall on the plans or the suggestions in our petition, so that at least he will do something better to help this economy. Times are too hard. People cannot afford 3 square meals. People cannot buy fuel. In fact, it's too much. The hardship is too much. And so this is the time we need him. He told us that he can manage this economy better. At least he should come out and give us some hope.
Now, have you presented the petition, and what was the response?
Yes, I presented the petition to the Deputy Chief of Staff Operations. And so he promised that he was going to send it to him right after that. So we are expecting that if he received the petition, at least he will wake up from his sleep.
What exactly are you hoping to achieve with this petition?
Well, what we want to achieve is that the economy must get better. The exchange rate, government must do something about it. The fuel hikes, the prices going up, government must do something about it. That people are suffering, income saved. And so it's important that government listen to the people of this country and do something, especially when they promise that they were going to make Ghana better. In fact, now we don't know whether we are in hell. Times are too hard.
All right, thank you very much. That is Deputy Organizer for the National Democratic Congress, Hamilton Nixon Baini, and he presented a petition to the Vice President to register his displeasure about Ghana's economic woes. Now, the minority in Parliament is demanding that the leadership of the Electoral Commission and the National Identification Authority are brought before Parliament immediately. Minority Leader Haruna Jusu is alleging that the EC is planning to ditch its voters database and rely on that of the NIA. He was commenting on the business statement for next week presented in the House.
Have raised. Mr. Speaker, there is a discrepancy in the numbers between what the Electoral Commission have registered as voters, up to 17 million, and what is on the roll of the National Identification Authority. And we hear that the Electoral Commission wants to rely on the National Identification Authority data. The primary question the Honorable Ahmed is asking is, so what has happened to the Electoral Commission's own biometric data? That today they are avoiding the use of their own biodata they collected, and they want to collect biodata from the National Identification Authority. But we need a reconciliation of the numbers, because we are very convinced that Article 42 confers a right on Ghanaians to be registered as voters by the Electoral Commission. And Mr. Speaker, the National Identification Authority is unlike the Electoral Commission, which by virtue of Article 45 says that it shall not be subject to the direction and control of any person or authority. The words are mine, including the President. But National Identification Authority is subject to ministerial control. And therefore, we want the two bodies to come here, Electoral Commission, NIA. Let us see the discrepancy and variance in your numbers.
The Minority Leader also says the Electoral Commission must be questioned on why it has not undertaken limited voter registration in the last 2 years.
We will not, Mr. Speaker, accept any attempt by the Electoral Commission to disenfranchise any Ghanaian because they want to rely on an ID card which is not available to Ghanaians. And we mean serious business on this matter. That right, we will jealously protect and safeguard the provisions of Article 42. So, Mr. Speaker, what the Honorable Ahmed is saying is that the two institutions must come here, and then we will hear them, and then reconcile the numbers. In fact, the Electoral Commission must further explain to this House how come 2021, 2022, Ghanaians of age 18 years have not been given the opportunity to be on the electoral roll. That's a denial of the right under Article 42. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution imposes a burden on us to protect this Constitution. So any effort by any institution to erode that right, we will resist it and resist that oppressor's rule.
Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante joins us with details. Kweku, how did the Majority Chief Whip, who presented the business statement on behalf of the Majority Leader, respond to these concerns of the minority?
So, Maps, according to my Majority Chief Whip, Frank Anodombre, discussions were held at the business committee level, and that indeed it was expected that the reports that the Minority Leader cites there would have been laid in the House this week. He said it would have been an omission because he has, as a member of the committee, is very much aware that this discussion has been had. And so it's just an omission that has not been done. As regards to whether or not the Electoral Commission and NIA leadership can be brought before Parliament, he said that is something that they can do. And as leadership of the majority side, they will be seeking to invite them to appear before the House. Of course, it does not provide any timeline as of yet. And we're expecting that within next week, when a business statement is presented, there will be some scheduling of EC officials and the leadership of NIA to appear before Parliament.
That is Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante there. Now, the Christian Health Association of Ghana, CHAG, has indicated that the rising cost of living is a threat to national health security and quality health delivery. The association president, however, says they will continue to ensure member facilities deliver quality service to its clients in this difficult time of the economy. Dr. Peter Yeboah, the president of the association, was speaking to JoyNews at the sideline during the 50th anniversary celebration of St. Joseph's Hospital in the Nkwanta South Municipality of the Oti region. There's more in this report.
The fluctuation is too much. Today is 1 cedi, tomorrow is 150. Health insurance is still keeping the same amount. So what they do is the suppliers will call and say, no, we are reviewing our prices. So some of the things we have ordered for till now, they have not supplied them because there have been changes, rises in the prices of the drugs and consumables. So they wouldn't want to commit themselves by supplying at that rate and later be caught up with the increases. That will also cost them. At the end of the day, we don't even pay them according to the stipulated time. So, in fact, it is very difficult.
That was Sister Georgina Kwesin, the administrator at the St. Joseph's Hospital at Nkwanta in the Oti region, in earlier conversation on how the economy was affecting health delivery at her facility. The president of the Christian Health Association of Ghana, CHAG, Dr. Peter Yeboah, is confirming this fact. He says the current dollar to cedi ratio is a threat to national health security, which must be addressed as soon as possible.
We are jointly and severally affected. Service providers are affected, and clients will always have to be called upon to make up the difference. And this is going to affect utilization of healthcare services on the side of the client. It's also going to undermine the capacity of service providers to get the much needed medicines. The health dimension is a matter of national concern, matter of national health security, which we must address in the nearest future.
The depreciation of the cedi, he says, could affect quality health delivery, as essential medicines and consumables would be expensive to procure. This means that any cost incurred would be passed on to the client.
If the trend doesn't change, what it means is that the procurement of essential medicines, essential consumables, and salaries will be far more expensive because we use the dollar to procure these medicines. Our suppliers sell these medicines from the international market. And so the long-term effects on everybody living in the system, not only the health sector, will definitely be felt. So the need to have a very fair, favorable economy can never be overemphasized.
Dr. Kokwauno, who was the guest speaker at the ceremony but spoke to JoyNews at the sideline, also asserts that the economic crisis is affecting the provision of resources at the various health facilities, as donors are reluctant in funding supplies while domestic funds dwindle.
The health sector has been affected because of lack of resources. We have both international funding and domestic funding. Domestic funding is dwindling, and even the partners that we have that come to support us, some of them are not coming forth. That is a recipe for disaster for our healthcare system. We need to start thinking, how do we mobilize more resources for health? How do we attract the needed investment in health? Normally, for health, people don't see the dividends in terms of infrastructure. But how do we get partners on board? How do we have strategies, health strategies that attract partners? But how do we also make sure that we are being innovative in mobilizing local resources? You know, the challenges of the national health insurance as a social intervention needs to be addressed. But also, most importantly, we also identify that there are certain diseases that are affecting most of our people, and yet they are not under the national health insurance. I think that needs to be done. We need to bridge the gap between the overdependence on curative services and public health services.
The hospital celebrated its 50th anniversary on the theme, Remembering the Past, Celebrating the Present, and Envisioning the Future. Peter Sanu for JoyNews.
Illegal miners have launched fresh attacks on forest reserves in the Ashanti region, despite the government's ban on small-scale mining in forests and water bodies. Illegal miners have invaded the Apamprama and Ondo reserves with heavy earth-moving equipment, destroying several forest covers with impunity. Officials of the Forestry Commission are shocked at the level of destruction. Ohimintira has more.
The Apamprama Forest Reserve, situated in the Amansia Central and West districts in the Ashanti region, covers 36.28 kilometers. The Oda Reserve, on the other hand, measures 16,000 hectares. Until the recent government's ban on small-scale mining in river bodies and forest reserves, the two reserves were hotbed for illegal mining operations. Mining in those reserves appeared to have ceased completely, and mined lands reclaimed. But it appears it was short-lived. Increased mining activities in the reserves mean deforestation, with forest land changing to bare lands. Forestry Commission officials led by the Deputy Chief Executive Martha Kweyi and Ashanti Regional Manager Clement Omari were shocked to learn of the latest devastation caused to the reserves. That anti-galamsey operation saw the arrest of 2 Chinese nationals. The Forestry Commission puts the current destruction in the Odan Reserve at about 20 hectares, similarly to 1,600 standard football pitches.
The situation is very horrible, and I think something must be done to it.
Mr. Omari tells JoyNews the level of destruction, especially in the Apramprama Forest Reserve, is horrible.
If you look at the extent of destruction, then the only word I can use is it's very horrible. If you look at the way people have taken the law into their own hands without entry permit, going to the forest reserve, a gazetted forest reserve, and doing all these things, which is not encouraging at all. So we need to sit up and ensure that all those recalcitrant operators are eliminated from the place.
According to Mr. Omari, the fight against illegal mining cannot be won overnight with the deployment of unarmed forest guards to face off with armed illegal miners. He is calling for support from local assemblies, traditional authorities and politicians to back West with action to the fight against illegal mining.
Forestry Commission, the politicians, landowners, district assemblies, all and sundry, we all need to sit up and ensure that the right thing is done. Even though Forestry Commission, we are mandated to ensure that there is a sanity in the place, but we all need hands on deck to ensure that we prevent these activities once and for all.
From Apramprama Forest Reserve in the Ashanti region for JoyNews, Midday reporting.
JoyNews today. Up next is business. Hello, good afternoon. It's time to do business with me, Beverly Broom. Female staff of the Ghana Revenue Authority are encouraging colleagues to stay in good health to aid in the achievement of revenue collection targets. President of the GRA Ladies, Vivian Nyonu, says the neglect of health status can impede performance of the group. She spoke to Joy Business at a breast cancer awareness event organized for the Kumasi unit of GRA.
The Ghana Revenue Authority is expected to achieve revenue targets of 80.3 billion cedis for the 2022 revenue collection year. In 2021, the revenue collector was able to collect a little over 57.32 billion cedis as against a target of 57.02 billion. The Ghana Revenue Authority Ladies Association is optimistic of achieving the targets, but cautioned members to heed to health practices. President Vivian Nyoni reveals the promotion of healthy lifestyle will form a pillar of the group's objectives.
We sensitize our women to be health conscious. As an individual, I'm very particular about my health. I believe that once I'm healthy, I can do all things. So that is why we are encouraging everybody to participate in whatever health screening so that they can be healthy to be able to contribute to the development of our organization and Ghana at large.
The JRA Ladies organized a breast cancer sensitization and screening exercise for its members. Statistics from the Konfanoche Teaching Hospital shows about 500 people are diagnosed with breast cancer annually. Women form 90% of the total number. Ashanti Area Director of the GRA, Agnes Akosia Edubuatin, wants staff of the authority to serve as agents in the fight against breast cancer.
After the screening, we are going to change the conversation. We are going to assist those impacted by breast cancer to get the information they deserve and need. We are also going to nurture and build a community to support and as well remain highly productive in our families and in our revenue generation drive.
Well, away from that, Minister of Lands and Natural Resources Samuel Abujinapo has disclosed the government's quest to make Ghana the mining hub in Africa. He believes the country can achieve this by building the human resource base of the mining industry. The minister was speaking at the 5th National Conference of Human Resource Management in the mining industry.
Minister for Land and Natural Resources has observed the need for human resource professionals to attract and retain new talent to meet the industry's future demand. Samuel Abujinapo noted the sustainability of Ghana's mining industry and the quest to make Ghana the mining hub of Africa lies in training and building local capacity.
The vision of President Akufo-Addo is to make Ghana the mining hub of Africa, where all mining and mining-related activities, from exploration to downstream production and from research to innovation, will be centered. This requires that we build a human resource base with strong local content and local participation that responds to the future needs of the industry, not only in mining, but across the entire value chain. As human resource professionals in the mining industry, you must familiarize yourself with the requirements of LI 2431, particularly the localization program for the recruitment and training of Ghanaians.
The conference seeks to find solutions to challenges confronting the industry, employers and labor. The theme, Transforming People Management for Sustainable Mining Industry in Ghana, aligns with the mission statement of the Ghana Chamber of Mines to use resources and capabilities of its members to deliver services to government and community needs to enhance sustainable development. Suleiman Akoni is Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber.
Effective people management is intrinsically linked to corporate performance and sustainability. Hence, the need for HR practitioners to constantly update themselves in managing employees. Human resources is the central pillar of any organization's success, and the Chamber is keen to see the attraction and retention of the best talent in our industry.
Managing Director of Anglo Gold Ashanti Obuasi Mine, Dr. Eric Esubonten, advised stakeholders in the mining industry to nurture industry workforce practical skills and modern mining methods. He revealed AGA is taking practical steps with MAC partners in developing local capacities in the Obuasi enclave.
That's all for business. We have more business on myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Beverly Broom. Up next is sports.
Good afternoon. Time now to do sports here on JoyNews today with me, Muftau Nabila Ablat, the Director General of the National Sports Authority. Professor Peter Chumesi has been released by the Legon Police Station on bail following his arrest on Friday for alleged involvement in a fraud case. Professor Chumesi reported himself to the police on Friday following the detention of his secretary, Ifie Serbo, on Thursday at the same police stations. Mam and Sons reported the NSA, its Director General, Peter Chumesi, its procurement officer, Ohino Chumesi, alleged to be the cousin of the director and secretary to the Director General, Ifie Serbo, early this month to the police after the authorities' failure to pay 50 hampers her company provided to the NSA in January this year. Mam and Sons was engaged to provide 50 New Year hampers to the authority at a fee of 500 Ghana cedis per hamper, totaling 25,000 Ghana cedis. However, there was no agreement signed between the two parties, and it was in June this year that Mam and Sons realized it was rather the company of the Secretary to the Director General of the National Sports Authority, Bobina Solutions, that was entered as the company to have won the contract. I was at the police station earlier today when Professor Peter Chumesi arrived for his statement to be taken. He was granted bail at 12 p.m. and after he agreed to pay the company the monies due them. He said effective November 7, the National Sports Authority will make payment. The former president of the Ghana Football Association, Kwesi Nyantakyi, says the 2014 FIFA World Cup fiasco blighted the achievements of his administration. Speaking on Prime Take, Mr. Nyantakyi said it was a scandal that brought embarrassment to Ghana.
But the money was not GFA money. And I'm not a public officer. I wasn't a public officer at the time. I had no control. I was not the accounts officer. The GFA does not authorize or administer public funds. There are public officers who are responsible for that. If the money was paid to the GFA and the GFA did not disburse it, then the GFA had questions to answer. But this was not the situation. The money, the account of the Ministry of Youth and Sports ought to have been credited by the Bank of Ghana. The money went to the Bank of Ghana on 23rd or 26th of May 2014, and it was not paid. Up to the time that His Excellency the Vice President visited the team on the eve of the first game, the money had not been paid. The players were assured that the money will be paid. They played the first match, no show.
No show.
Second match, no show.
No show.
Third match, they decided to do Togo.
So how did you resolve that situation of players revolting, saying that they were not going to train, and how did you resolve that?
For me, I was surprised because we had been engaging them. And the assurances that we gave that the money will be paid, even though we didn't have control over the money, we thought they believed us. They did not believe us because several assurances had been given and none of them was fulfilled.
Yes. So at that point, they were right not to trust you anymore.
Yes. Yes, we had proven to be unreliable, but we didn't even have control over the money. We didn't have
How
control.
disgraceful was it that the whole world had Ghana money flying all over to Brazil? Could you even look at other FIFA and CAF officials in the face? That
it was unimaginable. It was unimaginable that money could be flown across the Atlantic to pay appearance fees of players. And that attracted so much global attention, negative attention. Our country was not done a favor at all at that time. The media was not favorable towards us, and it didn't portray us in a very good light. And that was the West World Cup. It blighted all the achievements that we had made in previous
and took away the goodwill of the association.
Yes, it did. It did. It was not a good time for us at all.
That's your sports for now, but we do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. We'll come up with an update on the arrest of the Director General of the National Sports Authority, which happened earlier today. Up next is World News.